My name is Justin Holcar, and for over 20 years, I worked on some of the country's most complex environmental projects, dealing with water flow and drainage. So when I retired, all I wanted was silence. I found it in a 140-year-old A-frame cottage I call the Elmwoods. My property sat just outside the border of an exclusive housing association, Oak Haven Lakes. The best part of my new home, a natural spring, the only water source for my house, which had been flowing for at least 50 years before the HOA ever existed. The HOA president was a woman named Eleanor Vance. Her personality was as heavy as her expensive jewelry. With her perfectly coiffed hair and luxurious clothes, Eleanor saw herself as the Queen of Oakhaven, and the crown jewel of her kingdom was the community lake, the one thing that kept their property values sky high. Everything was peaceful until the summer of 2022. As an engineer, I speak the language of numbers, and the numbers were telling me something was wrong. The water level of my spring began dropping by about 6 inches every single week. This wasn't normal. It wasn't a drought. Rainfall records were average. Then one day, I went to inspect the source. Where water used to bubble up, there were only wet pebbles. That's when it hit me. If nature isn't the culprit, then humans are. I went to see Eleanor. Standing on her massive Lakeview balcony, she gave me a synthetic smile. "Dear Ava," she said, "it's just nature. Our lake is shrinking too, you know. We all have to adjust." Her words were infuriating. I knew that lake was her pride and joy, and she'd do anything to keep it full. "Climate change doesn't happen over a weekend, Mrs. Vance," I said calmly. "The flow rate of my spring is mathematically abnormal." She took a slow sip of her coffee. "You're an engineer, Ava, but you can't control nature. I just hope you won't violate our fencing codes along the border. It may be your property, but it's our environment, fencing codes." It was a clear threat, a way to apply pressure without saying what she was really doing. In that moment, I knew the game was on. Eleanor's cold smile just fueled my engineering mind. That same night, I hauled out my old gear, an infrared thermal imaging camera, and a high-capacity drone. First, I needed to confirm my suspicions. I installed a precise flow meter on the small pipe that brought spring water into my house. The results after 4 days were startling. An average of 2,100 gallons of water was missing every single day. It wasn't evaporating. The only other possibility was theft. While I was investigating, the HOA started harassing me. First, a $500 fine for a hanging lantern on my lawn. Then, a $750 fine because my fence color was outside approved standards. I ignored them. I wouldn't be distracted. I decided to talk to my old neighbor, Bert, who used to be the lake's caretaker. When I told him about my water problem, he got nervous. "Mrs. Sharma," he whispered, "I didn't see anything, but last spring there was a lot of night work near your border. New soil equipment moved out before sunrise. They called it lake maintenance. But the work wasn't on the lake. It was under the lake's edge. Under the lake. Those words echoed in my mind. It meant an illegal structure built from the lake bottom towards my property. That was all the probable cause I needed. It was time for the heavy equipment. I rented a ground-penetrating radar unit, or GPR. It's a device that can see underground. I planned the operation for the dead of night, dressed in gardening clothes to avoid suspicion. I began scanning the ground between my property and the lake. Suddenly, a line appeared on the screen. My heart raced. About 5 feet deep, running directly from the lake toward my spring, was a clear image of a large pipe. It crossed my legal property boundary by 8 feet. This wasn't just a dispute anymore. It was criminal trespass. I used my drone to collect mapping data and overlaid the GPR results. I created a perfect 3D model, refutable proof that the HOA had built a secret tunnel to steal my water. I called an old colleague, Steve, who's now an environmental lawyer. I showed him everything. His eyes widened. "Ava," he said, "this is more than just a property dispute. That pipe runs through a protected wetland. This is a state and federal issue. Eleanor is in big trouble." He was right. Any construction in that zone was strictly prohibited. My case now included theft, criminal trespass, and a serious environmental law violation. But I needed the final piece of the puzzle, the money trail. I hired another old contact, a financial investigator. A few days later, he found it. Eleanor Vance had authorized a $300,000 payment to a company called Jaladhara Construction for an emergency water level restoration. And who owned the company? Eleanor's brother-in-law's sibling. It was a clear-cut case of corruption. Then I got a mysterious email from someone called HOA Whisperer. It contained a single attachment, an unpublished minute from a board meeting. It said the president stressed that the lake water work must proceed quickly and vaguely to avoid county inspection. The smoking gun, it turned out to be a newer board member named Paul. He was panicking. He told me Eleanor lied to the board, claiming the work was just routine maintenance. He also gave me a crucial warning. Eleanor had called an emergency meeting to have my spring declared an undesirable structure and have it shut down for good. I prepared for war. I went to that meeting, but my laptop held a presentation that was more powerful than any argument. I had also quietly tipped off the county assessor, the state environmental agency, and a local newspaper. The meeting started. Eleanor saw me and sneered. "Ava, do you have something to say?" "We're not here to discuss your little property problems." I stood up and spoke loudly. "No, I'm here to discuss Oakhaven Lake's biggest problem: fraud, theft, and environmental crime." The room went quiet. Eleanor laughed. "A serious accusation, Ava. Where's your proof?" I connected my laptop to the big screen. Slide 1. The GPR map and drone overlay. Line number 1. My spring is drying up naturally. The truth, this illegal pipe is stealing my water. Eleanor jumped up. This is a fabrication. Slide 2. The flow rate analysis. Lie number 2. This was standard maintenance. The truth. 2,100 gallons were stolen daily, and Mrs. Vance, that pipe runs through a protected wetland. The minimum state fine for that is $250,000. Her smile was gone. Slide 3. The financial trail. I showed the contract, the company, and her family connection. Lie number 3. This was an emergency board decision. The truth. This was a conspiracy for personal gain. Eleanor screamed, "Get out, you're trespassing." Just then, the back doors opened. In walked the chief investigator from the State Environmental Agency, a county sheriff's deputy, and a news photographer. Eleanor froze. She glanced at Paul, who just looked down. She knew it was over. The investigator served her with a cease and desist order. The board immediately voted to remove her as president. Nobody stood by her side. The fallout was massive. Eleanor faced criminal charges. The HOA was forced to pay me $150,000 in damages and costs, and they had to pay a staggering $1.2 million fine to the state for the environmental damage. A month later, heavy machinery returned, but this time it was for restoration. I watched my spring every day. Slowly, inch by inch, the water came back. As a retired engineer, I proved that sometimes the most powerful weapon you have is just a map, some math, and the courage to demand the truth. Now, I sit on my porch and listen to the spring flowing again. It's a sound that's even sweeter than silence. It's the sound of justice. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.